So we're getting a new Onimusha spin-off, but one that I don't think anyone could really have expected. Onimusha VR Shadow Team is a limited time playable VR game that will be available only in Japan at Capcom's Amusement Expo booth from November 15th to November 16th. The game is a spin-off of Onimusha Dawn of Dreams, where you play as the Kagemusha, or Shadow Warrior of the Blue Oni, otherwise known as Soki. In the game, players will have to defeat incoming Genma with various VR actions to rack up combos. Now, I know what many of you are thinking. This isn't a new game that's coming to consoles and PC, nor is it one that is like a majority of the games in the franchise, i.e. an action-adventure game, so why should I even care? And to answer that question, I think this is good news for a few reasons. Primarily, Capcom has stuck to their word and is doing something with this franchise that would enhance the brand value as they've claimed they're committed to doing. So even though this isn't a mainline game and this is a spin-off that will likely never get a home console and PC release, Capcom is at least doing something with this franchise, which already shows that commitment to some degree. It also shows us that they are, at the very least, putting this franchise in a good place, so to speak. And what I mean by that is that if you were to compare Onimusha to Dino Crisis in terms of which franchise is getting new content for it right now, Onimusha is at least active to some degree, whereas Dino Crisis has nothing new for it going on. And worst of all, the recent backwards compatible port of the original PS1 release for that game is locked behind a subscription. Of course, I don't want to focus too much on Dino Crisis here in this video, but I do think that you all get the point in that unless if the franchise is actively getting some form of new content, whether that's movies, anime, books, manga, etc., you can't really expect something new for a franchise like that if it's just pretty much dormant for the most part. That being said, I do think that getting this new content is somewhat exciting because it puts us in a better place than, say, 10 to 15 years ago, especially where we were just left off with an online trading card game, Onimusha Soul, which was kind of like the precursor to Capcom's more recent online trading card game, Teppen. The other reason I think this is potentially a good thing is that in a weird way you can kind of gauge when Capcom is gearing up to do something with the franchise when they do some cross promotion like this. For example, when Capcom releases a new patchy slot machine for Devil May Cry, well, that's not a guaranteed way to tell if a new game or port is coming. It's a pretty good indicator that Capcom is gearing up for something in relation to that franchise. Also, another example is Resident Evil. That franchise also happens to get patchy slot machines, and in more recent years, they've been doing special event games like Biohazard Valiant Raid and Biohazard Walk Through the Fear as a way to promote the franchise. Realistically speaking, I don't think that Shadow Team alone will bring in new fans to the franchise per se, but I do think that this is just a clever marketing trick that Capcom does take advantage of, at least in Japan and across Asia, in order to entice anyone to try out a new port or a new game for any of their franchises when it comes to them announcing new products for consoles and PCs. I'm sure that's at least the idea behind them doing something with any of their franchises in this way. To me, it's just a little too coincidental that they're doing a VR game now all of a sudden, and especially one based on Dawn of Dreams of all games. Again, there's no guarantee that we are getting a new game or even an HD port of any of the games in the franchise, but we could be seeing something in relation to the franchise in the foreseeable future, and it may have something to do with Dawn of Dreams. My hope is that it's not just a standalone HD remaster of Dawn of Dreams, primarily because I do dislike the game. However, I would understand why it would be the case, especially if it's to capitalize on any interest from Shadow Team, and still would be willing enough to support a new port of the game, given that it would show Capcom that there's still interest in the franchise, even if it is niche. Ideally, I would hope for an HD collection that would include 2, 3, and Dawn of Dreams, with the potential possibility of HD ports of Blade Warriors and Tactics possibly being included as well. I would like that before any potential remake, especially since in a recent Capcom survey for Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster, for those that aren't aware, if you said in the survey that you liked the way that Dead Rising was done, it would lead to a question that asked if you were potentially interested in other games like Onimusha to have the same treatment. I won't talk about Dead Rising in this regard because I don't know much about the franchise and have never played any of the games, and also because as far as I can tell it's more of a remake than a remaster. I personally wouldn't want something like that for the Onimusha franchise, not because I'm against remakes for the games, but more so that I believe that we should get HD ports of the old games before talking about any potential remakes. To add to that, I would also be open to seeing Capcom working with GOG again, similarly to how they did the classic Resident Evil games by releasing a PC port of Onimusha 3 on that platform. Granted, it doesn't address the issue of not having the other games be ported and remastered, but it would at least be a start. And just a bit of a side tangent regarding that port of Onimusha 3, it was delisted from Steam about 11 years ago at this point, but about 6 years ago, it for some reason had an update where it included game artwork for the Steam library, which in on itself was a little bit odd when you think about it. Capcom has been a little weird about this franchise in recent years, especially after the HD remasters release. We had a Tekken crossover, an anime, and now a limited time VR game. So my biggest hope is that we do see something from this franchise as soon as possible. At the very least, it's a good sign that this franchise isn't just done because some leaker claimed that the remaster didn't do so well and that Capcom is shelving Onimusha as a franchise. But regardless of what I think, I want to know what you all think down in the comment section below. If you happen to be going to the expo where this game will be playable, do you plan on trying it out? Or if you happen to be watching this video after the fact and did happen to play that game, what did you think of it as a spin-off title? Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed today's video. Feel free to give it a like, maybe even consider subscribing. Otherwise, I'll see you all in the next one. Matane.